Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something we've all experienced or seen firsthand: relationships. The beginning of a relationship feels like a dream, right? The butterflies, the chemistry, the endless conversations. But sometimes things start to shift and we find ourselves asking, is this really going to last? Today, I want to help you spot the early signs that a relationship might not have the longevity we're hoping for. So let's dive in. In the early stages of a relationship, communication is key to building connection and intimacy. It's through these exchanges that we learn about each other's values, desires, and personalities. However, communication isn't just about talking, it's about sharing, listening, and making each other feel seen and heard. When communication becomes one-sided, it's a huge warning sign that something is off. And it's essential to pay attention to this dynamic early on. At first, we often don't mind doing a little extra work to get to know someone. If you're the one initiating texts, making phone calls, and setting up plans, it can feel like you're putting in the effort to keep things moving. But the truth is, relationships should be a two-way street. If one person consistently does all the work while the other remains passive or detached, it's only a matter of time before frustration sets in. Think about it. In any healthy relationship, both individuals should be invested in maintaining communication. You both want to know how each other's day went, what your hopes and dreams are, and how you can support one another. If you're the only one asking questions, sending thoughtful messages, and attempting to deepen the bond, it suggests that the other person isn't as equally invested in the relationship. At first, this might seem like a minor inconvenience, but it can quickly snowball into something more serious. When communication is one-sided, it often leaves one person feeling undervalued. We all crave validation and connection, and when the other person isn't reciprocating the same effort, it can create feelings of inadequacy. It's easy to start questioning whether the relationship is even meaningful or if the other person cares at all. You might wonder, am I the only one trying to keep this relationship afloat? This imbalance can manifest in various ways. Maybe you're always the one texting first, only to get brief, lukewarm responses. Perhaps you're the one making all the efforts to arrange dates, and when they do show up, they seem distracted or disinterested. Sometimes it can even show in how quickly someone responds or doesn't respond when you need them. A delay in texting or the absence of a reply is normal in a busy world, but when someone takes days to respond or consistently avoids a conversation, it sends a message that they may not prioritize you as much as you do them. Over time, this dynamic can breed resentment. If you're constantly the one reaching out or putting in the emotional labor of maintaining the connection, you're likely to feel drained. It's exhausting to chase after someone who doesn't seem to meet you halfway. And while a little initial excitement and anticipation are normal, this shouldn't be a pattern that continues indefinitely. Worse still, when communication is lopsided, it can also result in misunderstandings and emotional distance. If you're the only one opening up about your thoughts, feelings, and experiences, while the other person keeps their guard up or gives very little in return, it's hard to feel truly close to them. Relationships thrive on emotional vulnerability, but vulnerability requires both people to feel safe and secure enough to share. When only one person is sharing and the other isn't, it creates an emotional gap that can be difficult to bridge. It's important to remember that communication isn't just about frequency, it's about quality. Even if you're both texting back and forth every day, if one person is constantly giving one-word answers or avoiding deeper conversations, that's still a sign of a one-sided connection. True communication involves thoughtful exchanges, meaningful conversations, and moments of real connection. If these are few and far between, it's a clear indication that the relationship isn't progressing in a healthy way. So what can you do when you recognize this pattern? First, have an honest conversation. Ask how they feel about communication in the relationship and whether they feel the same way. It's possible that they may not even realize they're not putting in enough effort. Sometimes people get caught up in their own lives and fail to recognize that a relationship requires ongoing nurturing. However, if the response is dismissive or they seem uninterested in making a change, it's time to reassess where you stand. Remember, relationships are meant to be a partnership where both individuals contribute. If you find that you're consistently the one doing all the work to keep the conversation alive, it might be a sign that this relationship isn't as balanced as it should be. In the end, you deserve someone who is as eager to communicate with you as you are with them. Someone who matches your effort, shows up when you need them, and values the bond you share. In the early stages of any relationship, the excitement and enthusiasm are usually palpable. Both people are eager to spend time together, get to know one another, and make each other feel valued. However, as the relationship progresses, it's essential to see how much effort each person puts into prioritizing the other. If someone consistently doesn't prioritize you or your time, it's a glaring red flag that the relationship may not be heading in the right direction. At the start of a relationship, there's a natural tendency to make time for each other. Whether it's a spontaneous text, a weekend date, or simply carving out time to talk, making each other a priority is an essential part of building connection and trust. But what happens when this sense of priority fades, or worse, never materializes in the first place? When someone doesn't prioritize you, it usually manifests in a lack of attention to your needs, desires, and time. They may be perpetually too busy to make plans, constantly cancel on you at the last minute, or show little interest in investing in the relationship emotionally or physically. You start to feel like an afterthought, something they'll get to when they have the time, instead of someone who's an important part of their life. And when this happens, you can't help but feel undervalued. Your time is incredibly precious, and it's important that you're not only respecting your own time, but also the time of the people you care about. A person who values you will recognize that time spent together is an investment, not an inconvenience. They'll want to spend time with you because it adds value to their life. On the other hand, someone who doesn't prioritize you will find excuses for why they can't see you or spend time with you. They may make promises to plan something together, only for those plans to repeatedly fall through. When this becomes a regular pattern, you're left feeling as though your time isn't important to them. And that can be emotionally exhausting. One of the most significant ways this shows up is through cancellations or rescheduling. We all know that life can get busy and sometimes things come up. But if someone constantly cancels plans at the last minute or suggests rescheduling without showing genuine effort to make it happen, it's a clear sign they aren't prioritizing you. The occasional change of plans is normal, but when it happens repeatedly, it becomes a habit, and a frustrating one at that. It begins to feel like you're the one adjusting your schedule around their availability, but they aren't doing the same for you. It's not just about showing up physically, it's about showing up emotionally as well. Prioritizing someone means being there for them, not just when it's convenient, but when they need you most. If your partner or the person you're dating never seems to be there during important moments or even small everyday things that matter to you, it's a clear indication that you are not a priority. If they're unavailable when you need support, or worse, if they're indifferent when you express how you feel, you may find yourself questioning your place in their life. Sometimes prioritization comes down to the way someone values your time and energy. If someone constantly shows up late, ignores your texts, or doesn't make an effort to be on time for your plans, it reflects a lack of respect for you and your time. The respect isn't just about how they act in person, it's about how they acknowledge your life outside of the relationship. They should be making an effort to show that they care about your commitments and responsibilities, as well as your need for quality time together. If they continually disregard your time, it sends the message that they don't view you as important enough to make the necessary adjustments in their life. Moreover, when someone doesn't prioritize you, it often leads to emotional disconnection. Over time, as you feel less valued, your enthusiasm for the relationship diminishes. You begin to lose trust in the person's commitment, which then creates distance. This distance isn't always physical, it's emotional. You stop feeling like a team, and the sense of partnership you once had begins to erode. Eventually, you find yourself wondering why you're even putting in the effort when the other person doesn't seem to care. It's essential to recognize that in any relationship, whether it's romantic, familial, or even a friendship, time is one of the most precious things we can offer. If the other person isn't willing to invest in you or your time, then it's worth asking yourself, why am I investing in them? The truth is, when someone truly values you, they'll make room in their life for you, even when things get busy or complicated. Prioritization isn't just about making plans. It's about making each other feel important, seen, and respected. If someone repeatedly fails to prioritize you or your time, it's a sign that you may not be as important to them as you deserve to be. And in those moments, it's essential to listen to your own needs and recognize your worth. You deserve someone who genuinely values your time, respects your boundaries, and is committed to being there for you in both the small moments and the big ones. In the early stages of a relationship, there's a natural sense of excitement as both individuals explore the potential for something deeper. The chemistry is strong and the connection feels electric. However, as time goes on, it becomes increasingly important to assess whether the relationship is headed in the same direction, especially when it comes to long-term goals and aspirations. One of the most significant signs that a relationship might not last is the absence of a shared vision for the future. A relationship without a shared vision for the future can often feel like you're both on separate paths with different goals, priorities, and expectations. While it's normal for people to have their own individual dreams and ambitions, a successful partnership requires some level of alignment in terms of values, life plans, and where you see yourselves in the years ahead. When these visions aren't in sync, it can create a fundamental disconnect that becomes more difficult to overlook over time. At the core of any meaningful relationship is the idea of building a life together. For this to happen, both individuals need to have an understanding of what they want in the future, and ideally, their plans should complement each other. This doesn't mean you need to have everything figured out from the start, but there should be some level of discussion and alignment on the big picture. Things like career aspirations, family dynamics, lifestyle choices, and overall life direction. For example, one person may dream of traveling the world, living in different countries, and experiencing new cultures. Meanwhile, the other person might have a strong desire to settle down, start a family, and build a stable home base. While both visions are perfectly valid, if they aren't discussed early on, it's easy for frustration to build when one person's dream feels neglected or disregarded by the other. Over time, this can lead to a sense of disappointment and emotional distance, as both people start to realize that they want different things from life. The idea of a shared vision doesn't just stop at lifestyle or big life decisions like marriage or children. It also encompasses the way both people envision growing together as individuals. If one person is focused on personal growth, career advancement, or pursuing new opportunities, while the other person feels stagnant or uninterested in change, this can create tension. For a relationship to thrive, both partners should be invested in each other's growth, supporting one another's individual goals while also nurturing the partnership. Without this, one person may feel like they're putting in all the effort to evolve while the other remains stagnant, which can lead to feelings of unfulfillment and even resentment. There's also the question of long-term commitment. If one person sees the relationship as something temporary or doesn't think about it in terms of long-term potential, while the other person envisions a future together, it creates an imbalance. Without a mutual understanding of commitment, the relationship can feel one-sided. If you're putting your time, energy, and emotions into a relationship with the hope of building a future, but the other person isn't on the same page, it can leave you feeling uncertain and unappreciated. Another crucial element of a shared vision is the alignment of values. Whether it's the way you both view money, spirituality, family dynamics, or how you spend your time, these core beliefs shape your daily lives and can have a lasting impact on the relationship. If your values aren't aligned, there can be constant friction as you try to reconcile your differences. This might manifest in arguments, frustration, or emotional exhaustion, especially when it feels like there's no middle ground. It's also important to note that a shared vision doesn't mean you have to agree on everything. Relationships are about compromise and finding common ground, not about having identical dreams. However, if you can't find a way to respect each other's aspirations while also working towards shared goals, the relationship may not have the necessary foundation to thrive long term. Sometimes it's not about agreeing on every single detail, but being willing to work together and adjust your individual visions so they can coexist. The absence of a shared vision often results in uncertainty. When both people don't have clarity on where the relationship is going, it's easy to feel lost and disconnected. One person might be fully invested while the other is unsure about the future, which can lead to insecurity and doubt. This uncertainty can erode the trust and connection that was initially formed, and without a clear direction, the relationship can begin to feel aimless. Ultimately, having a shared vision for the future is vital to building a lasting relationship. It ensures that both partners are on the same page, working toward common goals, and supporting each other's individual dreams. It's about understanding not just who you are in the present, but who you want to be together in the years to come. Without that shared vision, the relationship can feel like two individuals drifting apart, each with their own aspirations and ideas about what the future should look like, leaving little room for unity and long-term fulfillment. Respecting boundaries is one of the cornerstones of any healthy relationship. Boundaries help create a space where both individuals feel safe, respected, and valued for who they are. They define the emotional, physical, and mental limits that allow each person to be themselves while ensuring that neither partner oversteps or disregards the other's needs. When there's a lack of respect for boundaries, it signals a significant issue that can ultimately threaten the foundation of their relationship. At the heart of boundary violations is a lack of consideration for the other person's feelings, comfort, and well-being. In relationships, each individual has different limits, shaped by their experiences, needs, and personal values. These limits might be emotional, like needing space after a disagreement, or physical, like not being comfortable with certain forms of touch. When one person consistently ignores or pushes these limits, it shows a fundamental disregard for their partner's autonomy and sense of safety. A lack of respect for boundaries can manifest in several ways. For instance, one partner might disregard emotional boundaries by pushing the other to share things they're not ready to discuss or demanding constant attention and reassurance. Emotional boundaries are about ensuring that both partners have the space to process their feelings at their own pace without feeling pressured to conform to the other's needs. When these boundaries are disrespected, one person may feel overwhelmed, manipulated, or emotionally drained, leading to a deep sense of insecurity within the relationship. Physical boundaries are also a crucial area where respect must be maintained. Everyone has a different level of comfort when it comes to physical affection, intimacy, or personal space. If one person continually disregards these physical boundaries, it can lead to feelings of discomfort, violation, and even emotional trauma. For example, pushing for physical affection when the other person is not in the mood or ignoring the need for personal space can quickly erode trust. Over time, this behavior may lead the person whose boundaries are being violated to feel powerless or disrespected, causing an emotional rift that's difficult to repair. In addition to emotional and physical boundaries, respecting time and personal interests is another important aspect of a healthy relationship. If one partner consistently invades the other's personal time, monopolizes their attention, or makes it difficult for them to maintain relationships outside of the couple dynamic, it's another form of boundary violation. Everyone needs time to pursue personal interests, nurture friendships, and focus on their own goals. A lack of respect for these boundaries often results in the partner feeling smothered, overwhelmed, and disconnected from their own identity. This lack of independence can lead to resentment, making it difficult for the relationship to thrive in the long run. Respecting boundaries is also vital in preventing toxic behaviors like manipulation and control. A partner who disregards boundaries may attempt to control or dictate how the other person should feel, act, or think. They might use guilt, emotional blackmail, or even threats to push their own desires, which undermines the autonomy of the other person. Over time, this dynamic can make the other partner feel trapped, manipulated, or even fearful of asserting their own needs. A lack of respect for boundaries in this context can lead to a power imbalance where one person holds all the control, leaving the other feeling powerless and voiceless. Perhaps one of the most dangerous aspects of boundary violations is the long-term emotional damage it can cause. When boundaries are consistently disrespected, the person whose limits are being violated may begin to question their own worth. They might start feeling like their needs don't matter, leading to a diminished sense of self-esteem. In relationships, when one person constantly feels like their voice, space, and emotional safety are disregarded, the relationship no longer feels like a partnership. It feels like an imbalance of power, where one person's needs are always secondary. In a healthy relationship, both individuals should feel empowered to express their boundaries openly and feel confident that these boundaries will be respected. When boundaries are not only discussed, but also honored, trust deepens and both partners can feel secure and safe within the relationship. However, when there's a lack of respect for boundaries, the relationship can become toxic and damaging. It's crucial to address boundary violations early on, because when left unchecked, they can erode the emotional foundation of the relationship and ultimately lead to its breakdown. One of the most important aspects of any relationship is authenticity. Being able to show up as your true, unfiltered self is a sign of trust and comfort with your partner. However, if you find that you're not truly being yourself in a relationship, it can be a sign that something is wrong. You might feel like you're constantly altering your personality, opinions, or behavior to please the other person. or that you're hiding parts of yourself to avoid conflict. This loss of self-expression can be a major red flag and can significantly impact both your personal happiness and the future of the relationship. When you're not being yourself, it's often because you feel like who you are in your natural state isn't enough for the other person. Maybe you alter your interests to match theirs, suppress your true feelings to avoid confrontation, or adjust your behavior to meet their expectations. In such cases, you might start to feel like you're living in a version of the relationship that's built on a facade. This constant adjustment can be emotionally draining, and over time it can lead to feelings of frustration, sadness, and confusion about your true identity. The most common way this manifests is when you stop sharing your true thoughts and feelings. Perhaps you don't speak up when something bothers you, or you go along with things you don't truly agree with because you're afraid of upsetting your partner. You may start telling yourself that it's easier to keep the peace than to risk rocking the boat. While it's normal to compromise in a relationship, it's a problem when you're always compromising on things that matter to you personally. A relationship that stifles your ability to speak your truth can create emotional distance. And over time, it can leave you feeling like you're living a life that isn't entirely your own. Additionally, the pressure to be someone you're not can lead to an erosion of self-esteem. When you're consistently trying to mold yourself into a version of yourself that isn't authentic, you may start to question your worth. You might wonder if the person you're with would still love or appreciate you if you were your true self. This creates a dynamic where you begin to disconnect from your own desires, needs, and values. You start making decisions based on what you think the other person wants rather than on what's best for you. The more this happens, the more distant you can feel from your own identity, which can be incredibly isolating. Another sign that you're not being yourself in the relationship is when you lose touch with your passions or interests. In the early stages of dating, it's easy to get swept up in someone else's world. You might find yourself adopting their hobbies, interests, or routines, letting go of the things that used to bring you joy. While it's normal for couples to enjoy things together, the danger arises when you stop making time for the things that make you feel like you. Whether it's spending time with friends, engaging in activities you enjoy, or pursuing personal goals, neglecting your own interests for the sake of the relationship can cause a sense of dissatisfaction and make you feel disconnected from who you really are. There's also the issue of constantly seeking validation from your partner. If you're not being yourself, you may find yourself relying on the approval or praise of your partner to feel good about yourself. You might start seeking affirmation from them about your looks, intelligence, or worth, because you're unsure whether they would accept you for who you truly are. This reliance on external validation is a dangerous trap because it creates a cycle of self-doubt and insecurity. In a healthy relationship, both people should feel confident and secure in themselves without needing to constantly seek approval. Another aspect of not being yourself in a relationship is feeling like you can't express your emotions or vulnerabilities. Whether it's fear of judgment, rejection, or feeling like your feelings are too much, you might bottle up your emotions rather than share them with your partner. Authenticity is about being able to express both the good and the bad. If you're holding back emotions because you're afraid of how your partner will react, you're essentially building a wall between you. Relationships thrive on emotional intimacy. And if you're constantly suppressing your true feelings, that intimacy can never fully develop. This inability to be yourself can also prevent you from setting proper boundaries. If you don't feel comfortable asserting your limits, you might find yourself giving too much of your time, energy, or affection in ways that don't align with your personal needs. Being able to say no, voice your needs, and prioritize yourself are all vital parts of maintaining a healthy relationship. If you're constantly adjusting who you are to make someone else happy, it's likely that your own needs will go unmet, and over time, resentment may start to build. The loss of self can have long-term consequences on both you and the relationship. Eventually, you may feel that the relationship is built on something that isn't real, causing a disconnect that may feel impossible to overcome. You may even start to wonder if your partner truly knows you or if they're only in love with a version of you that you've created. The truth is, you deserve to be loved for who you truly are, your quirks, passions, imperfections, and all. If you're not able to be yourself in a relationship, it's a sign that something deeper needs to be addressed. Authenticity is what builds strong, lasting connections. If you find yourself consistently hiding who you are, it's time to ask yourself why. A healthy, fulfilling relationship allows both